joined today by 4 of my dear friends and professionals in the industry, some of which I've worked with many times before, some of which I've been working with over the last 2 years, all of which have had and shaped my career and helped me grow. So I'm really enjoying the fact that you've all turned up today to talk about don't throw it against the wall, it won't stick. So how many times are we constantly thinking about we've got budgets, we need to do something with them, there's new technologies, new mediums, as you've heard a lot today about SkyYard Smart, which is great, but how can we really understand what we're going to do with this budget and make a difference by putting the customer first across all different mediums? Every time I receive briefs from clients, there'll always be something surrounding the whole, oh, we need TikTok. We need to talk about TikTok today. We need to get a creative around TikTok. And you're like, that's cool, but what do you want to do about it? Like, what are you trying to achieve? And they're like, oh, I don't know. My creative director or my CMO or whoever told me that we need to do that in our campaign. So as agencies, we sit here and go, right, what's your budget? What do you need to do? So what I wanted to talk about today is really understanding what the landscape looks like and how it's changing and how we put audiences first with those budgets. So I will introduce everyone, and first of all, I am Amy Green. For you that don't know me, I am the Business Development Director at Pinpoint Media. For those who don't know who Pinpoint Media are, we are a data-driven content marketing agency. So we have offices in Cheltenham and we have offices over in London as well, and I have 2 of my team with me here today. We believe in using our 4 pillars, which have lots of different services attached to them. The main first one is strategy, so starting everything we do with a strategic approach, and that isn't just a buzzword for us, that is a part of the project that we put first. We then move into creative, so allowing all of the creatives that we come up with, making sure that they are driven by the strategy behind what you as clients you want. So that's not always sales, sometimes that's brand awareness, sometimes that's advocacy. It's always something different. Then moving into production, so the creative of that content, whether it be graphic design, video, animation, but really understanding what that looks like and where that's sitting. And then finally, media buying and where that's going to be placed, making sure that that money is placed securely to get the right return on investment that you need. And again, it's all driven by data, we like to hope. So we have at the end, Jay.
Hi.
Jay Richards, from the founder of Imagen Insights. Thank you for joining us. Christopher Kenna, who is the founder of Brand Advance Group. We've got the 2 lovely gentlemen next to me, part of Pinpoint Media. Doug Hurcombe, who is our creative director.
Hello, everyone.
And Rob, who is our designer and graphic designer as well, creative.
Hi, guys.
Perfect. So let's kick this off. We're going to start pretty simply, by the way. So what does it mean to you guys about don't throw things at a wall and see what sticks? Start with you, Jay. I always do.
Cool. Firstly, hi to everybody. Thank you for having me here, guys. So, overview about who Imagen Insights are. We enable our clients at Amazon Prime Video to crowdsource qualitative and quantitative insight from our Gen Z community within 72 hours. Nice and simple. The idea really of throwing something at the wall and it not sticking. For us, everything we do is about research. It's about understanding what the consumer wants. And I know as brands, sometimes research is like the bottom rung of the ladder because influence and everything else is super sexy. And research isn't really that sexy, if we're being honest. So when it comes out to doing anything in the outside world and as a brand, I think sometimes we forget to do research because we're just so excited to get stuff out because we've got great ideas, we've got great stuff that we have built with our amazing team. But for me, when I look at the quote that we've got on the screen, it's going, okay, we think it's a great idea, but do they think it's a great idea? And I think that's the biggest crux of everything, understanding, do the people we're actually trying to sell to think it's a good idea about what we're trying to sell to them? And I think doing great research first, and you guys are going to get deep dive into this even more, I suppose, later, is understanding, okay, if we do that part first, then everything else we do afterwards is going to work a lot better for us. And a great book to read on this actually is one called Black Box Thinking, which I'm currently just finishing up in a moment. It's a really, really good book to understand that. But yeah, definitely that would be my thought on it for sure.
From your side, Chris, how do you find it? Because I know from your agency as well.
Yeah. So we help audiences reach sort of minority groups globally. So I'm CEO of North America, and we help from New York Police Department through to Unilever to reach, African American, Hispanic, LGBT, disability, different religions, etc. And then the same across Europe as well. And so for me, it's slightly different in that I would say it's more when brands are wanting, they sort of know that they want to do better. you know, I want my ad dollars, I want my creative to be more representative. I want to stick it in media. There's a bit of a push towards minority-owned and operated media now and spending in that. So you've got to do more than just saying, I've put a nice black box on my social, or changed my logo to a pride flag. Now I've got to actually, you know, put our money where our mouth is, and try and reach these, because they're consumers at the end of the day. It's not just a nice to have. So there's, you know, chucking at the wall and hoping it'll stick is sometimes when it ties into your research, you know, understanding who it is that you're trying to reach. One ad will not sell to everybody in this room. That's just fact, you know. Gone is that day where you just spend £1 million on a TV ad and then you can use it everywhere and everyone's going to go and buy whatever it is you're selling. That's gone. I don't know if it was ever there, but it's definitely gone. Now, you know, you got to think of the nuances, difference between male and female, difference between me and my upbringing as a black gay guy compared to other people here. So I think that it sort of falls into that bucket for me is, you know, understand who it is you're trying to reach, understand what they're doing, what are their interests, making sure the creative represents them, making sure the media you put it in is actually what they're consuming. And yeah, doing a bit of research on it as well. I mean, it's mad to, like, even we've just been sat looking at a TV, haven't we? And, you know, I wouldn't just run in there and buy it without doing my research. Is this better than my Samsung? I think I even gobbed up and said, I think my Samsung's better. You know, like, of course, we do that in life. So why would we not do that and where we're going to stick our clients' money? And it's our job to make sure that we do it. You know, I know there's clients here, but it's me as the, you know, a CEO and founder of an advertising company, a bit like Jay. It's our job to make sure we make the best decisions. And you can only do that with research. Otherwise, you're just chucking it and hope it sticks. See what I did then?
I did. Thank you. I love that.
Job.
So that's then looking into really the power of the audience. It's always about putting the audience first, right? So really understanding that data. Doug, from your side, when you're coming up, because you named this panel, and it was all about the audience and who we create for and putting them first, what does that mean to you, and what does that mean to the brief as well from a design point of view?
I think for me, I mean, one of the reasons behind, and it's been a sort of a developing narrative for quite a while in terms of the way that we talk to, you know, consumers and the way that we talk to people, is a shift in mindset from consumer to audience. And we started talking about this about sort of 10 years ago, about the idea that we didn't talk about consumers or customers anymore, we talked about audiences, because they were elective. You know, so we actually went through a period where we actually were almost strapping people into chairs and forcing them to watch ads, because it was like, you know, we were so terrified about what was happening with ad blockers and this, that and the other. You know, so we had unskippable pre-rolls and all these kind of things that we were going to sort of time people in. And going down this ever-increasingly awkward rabbit hole of forcing people to watch content rather than just producing stuff which was worth watching. You know, so the big shift that's happened for me, and exactly what we were thinking about with this, was that it's about kind of sort of creating things which are of genuine interest to genuine people about their genuine lives and about the connection between the things that you do and the things that we do. So, you know, we move away from this idea of creating these very expensive bricks that we lob off the top of buildings hoping that we hit somebody on the head and that they turn around and look at our wonderful product. It's not about us standing there with a megaphone shouting about how brilliant we are anymore, you know, as brands. It's about us as brands taking a genuine interest in the lives of our audiences and taking a genuine interest in who they are and finding those connections. And the power of data to unlock those connections, to unlock the fact that you can have simultaneous conversations with lots and lots of different groups which are authentic and real and aren't just ticking a box on an exercise of, oh, well, we need a diversity content. It's about all life is diverse and all culture is diverse and conversation should be diverse. And it allows us to have those conversations in really authentic ways which are genuine and actually reflect a lot better on the brands that have them. So our role very much in the middle of all of this as an agency is about getting to the heart of that data, getting to the heart of what are the things that are important to people, what are the drivers that make them do that. So it's not necessarily about, you know, that it might stick or whatever, it's just not going to stick. unless it's really well thought out in the first place and really thought out about the truth of the subject that you're talking about and the way that you communicate it.
Yeah.
Because people have just such great bullshit detectors now.
Well, absolutely, and that actually leads me nicely into what are your frustrations about the way in which people put demographics into specific pots and think that it's all the same?
Go on, Chris.
And this is when you walked into the room earlier on when you walked in, and the very first thing you said was like, I can't believe it. Somebody's just doing this thing.
Sorry, I am a gubby northerner. And I've been surrounded by New York people for a long time, so I just want to talk. The whole point of, well, for me anyway, you know, I have 2 kids. I've got a 20-year-old called Kyra and a 17-year-old called Jerome. Kyra's white, both to the same ex-wife. Kyra's white and Jerome's mixed race. And I basically built my company, which, you know, I've had the great privilege now of having over 130, 40 staff in 5 countries. And I built it all because advertisers have been speaking to my daughter since she could open her eyes. Whereas my son, well, these last 4 years maybe, do you know what I mean? Seeing himself, having it placed in the media he's got, he's consuming, etc. And it just, you know, I'm just going to be honest, it just pissed me off that, you know, they're both living off Bank of Dad. They both, you know, I pay for it. So why would you treat them different? Because they need to bug me for it to be a purchase. And I think, although, you know, I'm obviously an advocate for our uniqueness, for coming at me within the communities that I represent, and I'm sure you're the same. Putting us into boxes, how can I articulate it? Okay, looking at this stage, all right, the 5 of us. When it's being talked about reaching us, you're called culture marketing, I'm called culture marketing, you're called marketing. You're called culture marketing again. And sometimes, depending on which side they're thinking, they'll call it culture marketing if they're going gender, but if they're just calling it, they'll call it marketing if it's just marketing. Like, isn't anything, if all of us have the same consumer power, isn't anything you do that divides us away and doesn't try and sell that product to everyone sat on here, isn't that just called marketing done badly? You know, if it's brand safety that stops it coming into media because it's got the word black in the media I'm reading, or if it's, you know, categorizing, you know, don't put ads in the hip hop category because, you know, it could be a bit dodgy in there, or whatever the reason, the brand safety reasons is, that means that me and you don't see the ad, but you do, just because of the media consuming, then I just think it's marketing done wrong. So yeah, I think, you know, we need to stop giving a name. The reason I was gobbing off this morning is because I read in Campaign there's a new name given to marketing that reaches people with a disability. Well, that's 12.7 million people in the UK with a registered disability, and we just siphoned them off today in Campaign. Yeah, just anything that doesn't give anyone that has, you know, potentially wants to be a consumer, anything that stops that is just marketing done wrong. So any new buckets that hinder that is again marketing done wrong.
And Rob, from your side in regards to those traditional pots as well, when you're coming through to actually receiving that brief and creating that brief, how does that affect you when you're going through into a design element?
I think really it's just about making sure that whatever you're creating is reflexive really of your audience and who you're trying to speak to. I think, you know, as you've been saying, audience really is key to everything that you do, and your audience can, you know, cross over multiple sectors or buckets or categories, and making sure whatever you're doing, you know, is going to appeal to all of those who are part of your audience, part of your tribe. That's the best way to sort of approach those things, to look as holistically and, you know, to lean on your brand values to make sure that you're communicating yourself to your people in the right way. That's really, I think, the way that it's the simplest way and the most strategic way really of doing that. So
one of our clients, and I love working with them because they are not afraid to admit when they have no idea what they're doing. And I think that's something that I'm like.
That's rare.
Yeah, no, trust me. I'm very good at admitting what I'm not good at, simply for the fact I know that I can just bring somebody else in who's better than I am and just allow them to do their job. And one thing I love about is that when they came to us, they were saying, we don't think we understand. So we, as I said, we work specifically with Gen Z, and they came and it was like, hey, we don't think we understand this demographic properly. And it's actually hindering us growing as a company. So what we want to do is just understand them properly, so that we can then market to them better. And I think once humility is something that, because they'd, in them, and obviously as marketers, we love to put people into brackets. So Gen Z is obviously just something that makes it easier for me to market stuff to you. So I'm just like, oh, hey, Gen Z, and you guys go, yes, I understand who that is. And now the next one's coming along, our generation Alpha. We love it. We just love people. But realistically, there's so much nuance to generations that people will then call Gen Z hypocritical. So they're like, okay, they care about the environment, but why then they buy everything for £1 from Pretty Little Thing and buy 95 different things? And it's not that they're hypocritical, it's that they're broke right now. So they just can't afford to buy the more expensive things that actually align with their values. And over time, that will change. And I think the problem I have with pots and sections and the way we put people into demographics, obviously it works for me from a business perspective, but the problem I have with it is that there's so much nuance within these demographics. Yeah. You can't really pile everybody into one. And I think the powerful thing about AdSmart and all the different things that you're going to hear about today and you have heard about is that it's just unique ways to engage with people that just have a different viewpoint to yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think like Chris was saying, 12.5 million people in this country are disabled, and imagine what that is globally, and so on and so on. There's so many different ways to target people that are better than them are currently doing it. And I'm not saying all the time you have to use an agency. I'm a big advocate. I always encourage people, just go try it yourselves. Before you come and use us, because we're very good at what we do, and we're a lot quicker than you guys are probably going to be just because we built the technology to do it. Just try it yourself. Just look at it and go, okay, actually, how can we use our own channels, our own platform, our own social media, our own TikTok, our own Instagram, to engage in a qualitative conversation with our users, with our fans, and see what they say, and just reach out to them. Hey, is anyone within our social media reach from these communities? What do you think of our content? How could we do it better? So on and so on. And then when you see those conversations, you then go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Now how can we do this at scale? And that's when you reach out to us. Because then you're going, actually, we understand the problem we're facing and reach out to it. And I think the best part of all of this is you guys already know that you're potentially ruminating on these things already because you wouldn't be in the room. The people I worry about most are the ones that aren't in this room. Because they're the ones that, we've got it right, we're fine, everything's all right, we're just going to keep cracking on doing what we're doing. But when we're in this room, it's you guys going, actually, this is something we want to work on and this is something we want to improve on. Yeah. I
find that really interesting, and actually I'd like to put it out to the audience that how many of you here, and show of hands, have actually asked your audiences on social media how they feel or what they want? Do you ever do that? Do you ever engage with the audiences? You do? Anyone else? Yeah? Because I find it really interesting every time I've been on a panel, and certainly with Jay, so many brands don't, and if they do, they're then too scared to talk to them. So do you then engage with them from a comments perspective as well, and try and actually understand? Yeah. So, and that's great, and I think as brands you need to start doing that more. You need to really talk to them, and then, like you say, use someone like Jay to do it on a larger scale, but to actually really understand what it is that audience actually wants is so important. And then when you talk to them, sometimes they change their mind, sometimes at their day they're argumentative, and I feel that that's just people in general. We're so different on a different day that it's really interesting to make sure that you ask the right question. And that actually leads me into my next one, is how important is it to actually get someone else to look at your data rather than you? Because I have found with clients before that sometimes you misunderstand your own data or move it so that you can do the creative or do the project or campaign that you want yourself, just because without even realising it, you're finding yourself pushing that way. So from you guys, how important is it to make sure that someone else is doing that and really understanding that data?
I think, going back to a point earlier when we were talking about the brief and sort of perfect briefs and things like that, I think it's not going into situations with pre-formed conclusions about what you want to get, about what the answer is. And it's about being really open about what the question is in the first place. It's like, we'll always sort of say, come to us with the problem, the opportunity, the outcome that you want to get, rather than what is the solution. The solution is we want to do a campaign of this, or we want to do a so-and-so of that. And it's about kind of sort of investigating that data together, because I think exactly as I think you both said there, I had a real frustration. We were doing a campaign, like big sort of national campaign for Nando's, and our frustration with the media agency was that they were only able to give us any kind of demographic based on traditional verticals.
Yep.
We wanted an attitudinal demographic, which it wasn't about, whether people were disabled. It wasn't about, whether they had certain incomes. Because to us, the kind of people that would be into the campaign that we wanted to talk about, they could be 17, they could be 90. Completely different lives, and it was just about a state of mind that was open to the new diverse future of what Britain could be all about.
Yeah.
And that's lots of different categories and groups and ages, and we just battered away to try and sort of get to a point where we could actually kind of sort of develop some kind of metrics that we could work from. And that really came from the fact of that initial brief being more about change and being more about kind of sort of evolving change and the brand changing in terms of perception in people's eyes, because they weren't the cool kid on the block anymore. Your dad went to Nando's, whereas before it was like, super cool and all that kind of thing. So it was a case of kind of like reaching out to sort of new audiences and finding something that chimed with them in terms of mentality, that chimed in terms of outlook, that was authentic, that actually kind of sort of meant something when it went out into the world, that talked their language and was authentic. The driver for that was a mutual ambition between the agency and the client to do something brilliant and to do something that actually did something. Rather than kind of going in with a kind of sort of pre-formed block about, well, give us an ad and we'll put it there, or give us a so-and-so and we'll put it there. It was about, this is what we want to achieve. And two groups of people that were really committed to trying to achieve something that worked and was brilliant. And that was a joy to work on.
As a very biased agency owner, let me tell you why I think you should all not do it yourself. One, because it feeds my kids, and the second reason is that I think, what do we bring? And I think sometimes we get lost on what we actually bring, and we forget ourselves. What is it we're meant to be bringing to this party? But I can only speak from our from our learned experience, and that is that I have an office that, out of, I think it's like 147, out of that, we definitely pull up the diversity, index for the whole of the advertising industry by about 5%, 100%, because it's over 50% non-white, it's 32% LGBTQ plus, we have different abilities, we've got Muslim and Jewish and Hindu, and etc. So, because, not because we seek after a certain community, but because we chuck the net out wider than it might be traditionally. It's not just all nepotism and LinkedIn. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The whole world got built on it. But we're just trying something different. But I think what we bring is, a bit like myself. I was in care, born into care, till I joined the army at 16 and left the army at 26, and now somehow I'm running a company and living in New York. I problem solve differently to many of the people that went to uni, many of the people that had a different path through life. Everything to me is like a barrel, 2 barrels, a plank and a bit of rope, get across this river and bring your 5 mates with you. That's how I look at every problem, and then sometimes I don't understand when things I really think, don't get me wrong, I love advertising, I love our industry, but I think it's insane. Just because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. And I speak at Cannes, I've just done Ad Week, I sit here in front of you lovely people, and we all talk about, and I watch other people talking about how the outcome at the end of this year is going to be so different, more diverse campaigns, we're going to reach, we're going to change our buzzwords to attention. And no, it was a good presentation and attention is good, but it's but then the path there is the exact same path that was done the year before, which is sort of insane. But I think the reason why brands should, whether it's agencies and specialists and consultancies and anybody in between, or use technology like AdSmart as well, is that you know, you bring, your teams bring, and as they get more diverse, these superhumans are going to problem solve in a way that you never thought possible. Honestly, when we get a brief from clients, they didn't expect us to come back with what we come back with, because we don't, you know, we didn't learn how to do it. Mark Ritson didn't tell us how to fill it, how to do that proposal. You know, life did, and your journey through it. So, yeah, if I'm going to advocate for keeping me in-house, is that I think, you know, we get to bring the perspectives and problem solve in a way that you might not be able to do when you're sort of in the teams that you've got so far. I hope that made sense.
100% did, bro.
Cheers.
You're most welcome. Look at this. Look at this. Who would have thought? We get along.
Being nice.
I think as with anything, so when you're so close to something, it's then hard just to see the macro picture. That's just, it's simply put, that's really what it is when and especially when there's so much buy-in from us. Because as a brand, when you're, even with myself, with what I'm building, someone comes in and tells something about my business, I'm like, why the hell did I never see that? Like, I do this every day, and they're like, yeah, you're just stupid. I'm like, no, I'm not stupid. Like, but generally, like, it's because we're in it every single day, it's just hard to then see anything outside of it. And then also because you've got so much buy-in and so much love for it, because you guys will genuinely love what you do, and you're so passionate about it, and you've done it for so long, or you may not have done it, whatever it may be, because you've got that, then when you need to make a rational decision that's influenced by so much emotion. And again, I don't know why I'm plugging this book so much, but Black Box Thinking, it's because I'm reading it right now, so it's stuck in my mind. But when it talks about cognitive bias, when you're then looking at something, you just can't see the wood through the trees, through the forest, whatever that quote is. You guys know exactly what it is. You can't see it. Because it's just right in front of you, and I think that's something that I struggle with. So it's not something I'm saying you guys suck. It's actually, I do this all the time in my own business. Somebody tells me, and at first I go, ha, you're wrong, you're stupid, and then about 3 or 4 days later I go, oh wow, they're so much smarter than I am, and then I begin to then make those changes, and I just think that's the biggest challenge of really being able to see that.
So another version of that, shouldn't probably gob off about the brand because they're still our client, but very major plastic card, what do you call them? Credit card brand. And they had already gone live in like 14 countries or something before it got to us. And so they sent it to us, and literally within about 10 minutes of it hitting, you know, one of our campaigns teams in tray for us to put out across our network and do some work on it. The team had jumped in a WhatsApp group and said, Chris, you really need to see this. They need to stop this campaign. Now, they'd probably, in the 3 days it had gone live, probably spent about 7 million quid already in them 3 days off it being live, and it was going live for a month. But like I said, I can't tell you the brand, but it was for a credit card, and it had a cartoon imagery of a black family sat on the sofa. And now George Floyd had been murdered literally about 4 months before this. And so, you know, BLM was big news at the time. So there was a lot of sensitivity around it. And it had them sat on a sofa. And then at the top, it said, are you feeling in the dark about your money? Brand logo down on the right-hand side. Now, it is, a well-known saying in the UK, saying, are you feeling in the dark about something? But sticking it as the tagline above a cartoon black family sat on a sofa, you know, people are going, is this an actual really weird joke? Anyway, yeah, that's an example of, you know, but our team seen it straight away, but it had gone through. And so this brand, this client, you know, the brand is massive. So I'm going to guesstimate that it went through at least 40 people. Before it got to us,
isn't it, really?
For sign off.
Yeah, it's all about having, I think, a multitude of perspectives before, you know, anything goes out. And I think sometimes, you know, like you said, Jay, you know, it's great when, you know your brand, you're really passionate about it, you know the industry, you know the clients, the audience, whoever they are. But having those outside perspectives, or just someone who's maybe a little bit more, you know, they've been through this, they've had experience, you know, putting out campaigns or looking at the data and understanding how different audiences might, you know, feel about those things. It's just so sort of paramount to have that before, I think, going live with any sort of campaign. So, yeah.
So going into that then, and some of the questions from the audience, and I can imagine this is going to get some good answers. With Pride approaching, how can brands navigate the space in authentic ways?
Not wait for Pride to approach.
Not
knew
wait
you were
for
gonna
Pride
say
to
that.
approach is
So
exactly
true.
the right answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's literally it.
I mean,
Stop waiting for Pride every year. Just
Yeah.
come and take my money out of my pocket.
yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about reason, role, relevance.
Yeah.
And it underpins just about everything that we try and do. And what we say to brands is that, you know, you've got to have a reason to be in the space in the first place. You've got to have permission to play within that space. And if it's not being part of the fabric of your business, then make it part of the fabric of your business and then talk about it. You know, and then do something within it. But then, you know, if you do then have that kind of sort of permission to play, it's about having a role when you go into that conversation. So it's not just a case of changing your logo and doing this and doing that. It's what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table in terms of, you know, something which is genuinely going to do something? You know, rather than just wandering in, you know, like, you know, hey kids, you like skateboarding, we like skateboarding, that's it, thumbs up, you know, job done, on to the next thing. It's like, well, what are you actually going to bring to the table when you're in there? And then when you're actually in there doing something interesting, do it with relevance, do it with the right people, take the time and trouble. And again, this is where the research is so important. It's about, you know, doing things with people who are going to complement you, complement your brand, complement the audience that you're talking to. Natural connections that fit, natural connections that feel right. And not, you know, overstating the brand presence within the thing that you're doing. Yeah. You know, it's not about, you know, it's not about us. It's not about you. It's about them. That's the thing. It's about, you know, it's about the people that you want to celebrate and the things that you want to celebrate, rather than necessarily brand. And brands that are able to do, you know, brand in the background on things which are really big issues in the world are very powerful and you know, have much, you know, far greater success. But have a reason to go in there in the first place. We had that so many times when BLM, you know, kicked off, when George Floyd happened, and everyone's like, we're going to make a statement, It's like, okay, this hasn't been part of your business for 10 years. You know, what are you going to make a statement about? You know, how?
I think the thing is, and this is what Chris alluded to a second ago, is it's the concept of having a conversation over an extended period of time. And I think sometimes it's also okay as well to not chime in on something, as in, potentially not with this topic we were talking about now, but I know as brands, sometimes it's hard because there are so many issues to be engaged with around the world, and it's kind of which are the ones that we're going to get behind and so on and so on. And I know some people may disagree with this, but the way I look at it is it's okay to come out and say, hey guys, actually, you know what, we know there's so many issues in the world that we want to try and combat. But these are the three that we know we can actually move the needle on and impact, and we're actually going to put consistent budget behind this over an extended period of time. This is our 1 year plan, this is our 2 year plan, 5 year, 10 year, so on and so on. Because as consumers, especially Gen Z, and actually not even older consumers, because we're starting to move into other demographics as well as not just Gen Z. And I think the thing that we're seeing is, across the board from human beings, is that we just want to see that brands care over an extended period of time. The amount of speaking engagements I got around Black Lives Matter as a black man was wild. Did I hear from any of those brands afterwards? No. The moment it dwindled and suddenly it wasn't important anymore and black people don't matter anymore, I didn't hear from anybody. But in that period of time, I've never done so. And like Sinead, our comms manager, she knows, I just point blank say no to all diversity talks now. Anytime I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be your dog. Hey, Jay, what's it like being a black man? I'm like, bro, it's tiring. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to talk to you about it anymore. But I think if a brand has a conversation over an extended period of time, then it doesn't feel weird when they suddenly go, we've changed everything to pride colours. We suddenly care about the gay community. We suddenly care about the LGBT plus community. It just feels weird. And I think when you do it over an extended period of time and you choose the causes that you can, like Nike, they do this very well. They've chosen what they're getting behind and they will not shut up about it. And I think when you do that and do that well, it shows.
But then just quickly on that, looking at how important then reactive marketing is in today's changing landscape, and how still kind of in understanding when they can say something and when they can't, how can you still keep on top of that reactive marketing without then getting the backlash of A, not getting involved, or B, getting involved when it's not, like you say, yours to speak about?
For me, I think things fall into reactive marketing, and then things fall into cultural moments and using that for marketing. Reactive marketing isn't Pride. You knew it was coming from from the day after it finished the year before.
Yeah.
That's not reactive marketing. I'm going to sort of, it's not really controversial, so don't worry, Amy. But I'm going to say, how can I put it? You can't hire authenticity. Authenticity, the big word. Every brand wants to be authentic. Everything they're doing, what they're pumping out in every channel, we want to be authentic. You can't hire it. Your own staff, even if they're from that community, will not make you authentic. And even the services that we offer you will not make your brand authentic. Whether you're sticking something on AdSmart or whether you're coming to us to stick something across our minority-owned and operated media, not authentic just because we did it. Authenticity comes from repeatedly speaking to a certain community. Speaking to them when it ain't cool to speak to them, engaging them as a consumer, not as a cultural moment, this is the right thing to do, so I'm going to do it. No, this is the consumer thing to do because you want to sell as much of whatever it is you're selling to as many people as possible. So I think reactive marketing, when you're going to say we stand with Ukraine, that is a good cause for you to get behind, But, Black History Month, no, I was black 39 years ago, and I'll be black for another 39 years. How old will that make? Hopefully I live that long. But, so don't just speak to me in that month, or don't make your brand relevant to me in that month. The whole point, as we said before, we're not split out into cultural marketing and marketing here. We're just, speaking to me in using insights about me that makes it easier to speak to me and a wider section of my communities to convert me into a consumer. It should be an everyday and an every month strategy, a year long, taking the insights and putting that in and seeing what it spits out, looking at what I'm doing and what all yous are doing, what are we consuming, what makes us tick. And if there are some cultural moments you can stick in there, like Pride or Black History Month or something like that, or International Women's Awareness Day and stuff like that, then stick them in. But let's be honest, they're not marketing campaigns, they're social media push-outs.
Yeah.
They're moments in culture, and I think the thing is that what you get when you get, and we spend a lot of time developing social media playbooks and going into tribes and going into identities and going into things which are relevant. And I think one of the things that the new forms of agency bring, which I think have exactly our keynote subject have kind of triggered, is agencies with a greater understanding and a greater empathy for audiences as well as for the brands themselves. So, for getting under the skin of the brand and getting under the skin of what it's going to mean and helping on that journey of progression, helping on that journey of change. We're in the middle of a campaign for a brand at the moment who wants to change audience because they know that effectively their existing audience is getting older, they need to evolve, they need to move. And they've honestly come to us in openness and gone, how do we do this? How do what are we going to mean in 10 years' time? Because it's actually a real question for us. Yeah. And I think when you do that, you can really then start to talk about some of the things that are going to be important and some of the ways that you that you can manifest that into conversations, so that when you do have those cultural moments that do come along, like, there's a new TV show that comes out, or Bridgerton's out, or so-and-so's out, and you can actually then decide whether or not you join in with that conversation online with truth, because truth is truth. Yeah. And it's increasingly important in the world now in terms of marketing that brands speak truth. Yeah. And speak their own truth
as well. I think it's so important to be transparent as a brand and speak your honesty.
I think the interesting thing is and this is earlier when I was encouraging folks to just do research with your own communities, quote unquote, is the idea behind going, actually, you know what, we're going to have an ongoing conversation with people over an extended period of time. Firstly, let them, because it's your consumers, your fans will know the things that they think you should chime in on. And it's really, if you're in an ongoing conversation with them, you're less likely to miss things. You're less likely to do something wrong. And then if you do something wrong, you can actually go, actually, guys, we've been doing research with with a super diverse community for an extended period of time. So it's not that we're sorry that we made a mistake, but actually we're not doing it from a place of ignorance. We're actually trying to, do you know what I mean? So this one we dropped the ball on, but actually we've been doing research with diverse people. When I say diverse people, I'm not just saying like black and, I mean as in just human beings. We've been doing research with human beings over an extended period of time. So we didn't drop the ball because we're ignorant, we just dropped the ball because we dropped the ball. And we're human beings and we're gonna make mistakes. And I've been trying to get clients to do it for so long, be like, hey, you don't even have to mention us as a platform, I don't even care. Just talk about, we're doing research. Because when you do that, it's the humility of going, we don't assume that we know everything, so we're going to show you that we're actually doing our research and talking to these people. So when we make a mistake, but this is how we're going to correct it, and this is a community we're engaging with to make that happen.
So we've got another question from the crowd. How important is the role of TikTok to integrated campaigns?
Massive. Absolutely huge. Sorry, I'm going to shut up after this. So Duolingo and Ryanair, if we do nothing else the rest of the day, just go on their TikToks.
Who's on TikTok, by the way?
Guys, I love this. You all have my heart. You can follow me if you want, whatever. I do outfits and stuff. It's not a big deal.
And sings.
And sing as well. Yeah, don't tell people that. That's a video lower down. But the great thing about Duolingo and Ryanair is the way, especially Duolingo, the way they have conversations on TikTok with their audience. Half the time it has nothing to do with speaking another language. They're just on there just being human beings, and people find it so. I find it hilarious. Like, why am I following Duolingo? Like, and the other day they called out people that have a reminder to do Spanish every day and then ignore it, and I'm like, that's me. I'm like, why are you specific? I genuinely thought they were specifically targeting me. I saw it come up. I was like, their ads, like how they're doing this. But it's the way their stuff is, and I hate the word relatable, but the way it just makes so much sense. And the best part about it is like the young woman that started it was like 19 or 20 years old when she started Duolingo's TikTok, and she's now blown up because they're just like, who is this genius that came up with this stuff? And I think the great thing about TikTok is it can be completely unpolished. You can put so much time into a video that makes it feel great, but it doesn't have to look perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great place to just test things. The way the algorithm works is just test stuff. Just test stuff, see what's, I know obviously brand guidelines and all that kind of stuff, but it's a great place to just test things and see what works and then engage with people around that. And I think it's such an interesting platform. But I definitely, I absolutely love TikTok.
Do any of you guys in the audience have any questions for the panel that haven't come through here?
Yeah, so I was just listening to what Chris was saying specifically earlier about the different groups and understanding, talking to communities and stuff like that. I'm probably one of the worst consumers because I hate to feel like I'm being sold to, and I hate to feel like I've been badged.
Yeah.
And that thing around LGBTQ plus and all the other letters really got to me years ago in a previous job when I was a bank manager, and we did the whole pride thing. We painted our ATMs and called them gay ATMs, and
you went right in. You're just 2 feet into that, wasn't it?
You know, we had like diversity groups, and they always got somebody who was from that community to lead the diversity.
Yeah.
I suppose my question was, how do you reach people that are resisting being reached because they don't want to feel like they sit in a bracket?
Yeah. I would say, as long as it's not, man, woman, married couple walking with their 2 kids in the creative, I would say you advertise as if you were advertising to anybody else, but just stick it in that owned and operated media. It's the first thing I do. You don't need to paint the ATM and call it a gay ATM for me to say, all right, Barclays, I know you're there. I don't know if you said Barclays, but now I want you to be my bank. But I don't want ads, etc., to be blocked from being in Gay Times just because it's called Gay Times. You know, so I want to see the same ad as everybody else is seeing. Maybe it's, you know, if it's just got, it doesn't need to be a same-sex couple, but if it's just got a guy or it's just got a girl, you can use that ad. You know, like it still fits. It's the same tagline, but it's just sticking it in front of me in my media as well as everywhere else. You know, that's all you want. It doesn't need, and then the people that don't want to be specifically advertised to, they won't be. But you know what will be happening is that them ad dollars will be going to that, you know, that minority-owned publication, so that they can afford to keep the publication going, so that they can still, you know, write articles and create content that allows me to every year be able to go to 21 Prides, because I literally follow it around the world, you know, because they are shouting the good shout, fighting the good fight. They are, and they're being ad funded to do that. Just, you know. Like,
and it's not a small amount of money either. I mean, I think you've talked quite a lot in the past about the collective value of that market is huge. I mean, it was interesting. I worked at one point with a bunch of very egalitarian Swedes who had this kind of sort of payment system, and they went their kind of sort of market was little coffee stalls. And, you know, independent coffee shops and stuff like that. And the way they measured their business was the fact that collectively, these small traders and independent traders and people that were getting up and doing something were worth more than McDonald's in the UK. And that's what they said to give them power. And it was like, you know that collectively you're worth more than McDonald's. Collectively, our target for next year is for you to be worth more than Nike in the UK. And it was just this really like, wow, actually, there's like, you know, there's power in this. There's power and there's voice.
And I've just been given my 5-minute warning. Thank you so much for being here today, guys. I've really enjoyed it. And thank you so much to Sky AdSmart for having us, and for you lovely people for coming. It's lovely to see you in the flesh, because usually I see you on Zoom. So thank you so much.